Hey everybody, Professor Snart here checking in at about the midterm point in our 5-week course. So it's hard to believe we're more or less halfway through, even though it might not quite feel like it. And we are also about halfway through our current short fiction workshop. So we've just passed the due date for posting your work, so you've written a short story that is hopefully, developed enough that there's a basic kind of narrative arc, a beginning, middle, and end. There's some sort of climactic, thing that happens. You've got some characters doing some stuff, but by the same token, it's, as I've said before, the expectation isn't that in our shortened time frame, people would be producing these perfectly polished short stories. Again, remembering that the point of the workshop is to offer something that is a work in progress and then get some feedback in the hopes that you might continue and actually do some revisions. Because of the way our course is built, the fact that we move through so many different genres, again, in a fairly compressed time period, we don't actually have built into the course any requirement that you do revisions to your short story. I certainly hope that you'll think about it. If not now, then maybe sometime when you have a little bit more time and flexibility, especially since I'm sure some people are interested in submitting their work for publication to various literary journals and magazines. And again, I'm more than happy to talk with people about potential revisions or to look at a revision and that kind of thing, more as an individual, kind of a one-on-one basis. So we've done that part of it, the posting part. Hopefully, folks have come through in your group and posted on time and in a file format that you can access. And we now turn around to our next due date, which is Wednesday, June 15th, where you, within your workshop group, are providing feedback. And so remember, as is explained in the How the Workshops Work area here, it's really important that you are providing feedback in the way that's described here. So it doesn't count to simply write like a summative paragraph like in the discussion board saying that you liked this or didn't like that or made some suggestions. You can certainly give overarching comments like that, but to get points for our workshop you have to do it in the way that's described here, where you're opening up the file that's been posted by each of the authors in your group, and then you're using kind of whatever mechanism you want to really get in there on almost a line-by-line basis, really intensive throughout the document, doing some comments about what you really liked and why, areas that you were maybe a little confused about or think could use improvement, and always trying to frame that with possible suggestions, and keeping things grounded in specifics, which is again why we kind of get right into the document here. So that the writer knows what's working quite specifically and maybe what isn't quite specifically. So you're using like a commenting feature right throughout. So I'm going to open up these and see your comments throughout. Maybe you're using like a highlighting or square bracket system within the text itself if you don't want to use this commenting feature. And then obviously you're saving that right as your, not revision, but your peer edit or workshop edit of this short story, and then you're posting that back to the discussion board so that obviously I can kind of grade your feedback to see that you've done it, and so that the author can now get hopefully multiple versions of that story back with a different set of comments from each of those readers. And so then you as the author have this really great kind of assortment of comments where if one person noticed one thing, then maybe that's not such a big deal, or it's just more of an individual subjective opinion. But if a bunch of people noticed some similar things happening in your work, that gives you a really good indication that that's the thing that you can focus on. And again, there's no mechanism for you having to revise the short story, but you might find, in fact, that even some of the specific comments you get about this particular short story that you've written are applicable as we move further into the course, whether it's some positive strengths that you want to keep doing or maybe some areas for improvement, so you kind of gain an awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses as a writer. The truth be told, of course, that even in a full 16-week term, because of the nature of writing and just how slowly it unfolds and how long it takes to get sort of noticeably or significantly better, it's hard enough in that 16-week term. In our 5-week term, it really is challenging. So you're working quickly. And you're also probably not on a day-to-day basis seeing in practice marked improvements in your writing. So in some ways, this course is designed to introduce you to some ideas like the rules for creative writing, for example, to give you the opportunity to try those out, right, as sort of stepping stones to getting better, and maybe just to become a little bit more aware of your habits, both good and bad, as a writer. So again, it's really important to get these quite specific comments back from each of the people in your group, and of course you're being generous in giving those comments back to those who posted on time as well. Okay, so that takes us through our first workshop, and then we move into a different genre called creative nonfiction. So we sort of have some bridge units here in Unit 6 and 7, setting us up for our next workshop, which begins on Wednesday, June 22nd, where you're writing a piece of creative nonfiction. And of course, Unit 6 and 7 kind of introduce us to what that is, have us doing some, smaller writing exercises to try out that genre and some strategies for it. And then, but then, you can still be thinking towards that next workshop, so you're not trying to turn around in just a couple of days and produce that creative nonfiction essay. Creative nonfiction is an interesting genre because it's not one that a lot of people are necessarily familiar with or have done a lot of work in, whereas something like poetry or certainly short stories may be a little more common. So there's a bit of a learning curve in terms of understanding what it is, but it's also a really great genre for improving your writing because of maybe some of the constraints or what sort of defines it as a genre that's different from just creative fiction like what we did for our short story workshop. So again, I'll let you work through Unit 6 and 7 to kind of introduce yourself to the genre, but be sure you're thinking towards that next workshop, which, again, in our accelerated format, will be here before you know it. Okay, just another reminder about in order to get grades back to people in a timely manner, I don't do a lot of line-by-line commentary on a short story. Mostly what I'm looking for is, did you post your work on time in an accessible format? And then did you make a good effort at providing feedback in the way that I've just discussed here and is laid out in the How the Workshops Work area of our course? So there's not a ton of feedback on your writing for everybody. But that's not to say that if you are interested, I'm more than happy to provide you some more intensive feedback. We can meet face-to-face if you're around campus. We can meet virtually. So there's lots of opportunities to certainly get some feedback on your writing beyond what you're getting from the various people in your workshop groups. Okay, I think that's about it. Amazingly, again, we're about midterm in our 5-week course, so you can sort of see how we're going to roll along till the end here. And if you have any questions or concerns, as always, just be in touch with me.